In this second example, we're demonstrating how we can use the same functionality of the previous example, but to output completely different data. And also in this example, we're going to work with a raw array instead of pulling data from a text file first. So in this case, we're starting with an empty items array, and then we're adding 2 records to this items array. In this first one, we have 3 pieces of data for the record. The first is the first name, which is Frankie. The second is the instrument, and the third is years of experience. And then we just add 1 more record for Tracy here, who plays the tuba. And then finally, we're printing out the return value from output as table. Now the data here is significantly different than our previous example. We only have 3 columns, for example. The name of each column is also different. But because we made our output as table function very flexible, it can accept this data and print it out just as effectively as it could our original data. So if we go back to the browser, you'll see that we're outputting a second table here that has labels for first, instrument, and years of experience, and we're displaying our 2 records in the table body. Let's go ahead and jump back to the code. Now our code here is significantly more complex than our previous example, so if you're having a hard time wrapping your mind around it, that's perfectly normal. In building this code, we had to consider some different scenarios. For example, we had to think about what variations there could be in the data that we'd be working with. And we've also had to recognize that there may be scenarios where we want to do one part of the processing but not other, where we might want to take some data and turn it into an array, but we might not want to output it as a table. And there may be situations where we don't have a text file that needs parsing, but we still want to output data in a table. I'm going to go ahead and scroll up to the top of this code. I also wanted to point out that this code here is actually shorter than our other code. So I'm going to open up our other code, which is our 16th step here. And notice that this for each loop here runs from line 12 all the way to line 23, which is 11 lines. When we look at our new code, our for each loop runs from line 13 to line 19, which is only 6 lines. So even though our code is much more flexible, it's actually become quite a bit smaller as well. This is a really good sign that you're headed in the right direction with your code. A lot of times when you begin to generalize code to apply to multiple situations, the code can get larger, and then you have to assess whether it really makes sense to add that extra code to your code base in order to support different scenarios. But in a situation where you get added flexibility and functionality with less code, that's usually a clear win that you don't have to think about an awful lot.